Across the great black sea of stars, the Galactic Council sat in their tall silver chairs glowing with pride and power. They were the rulers of 1,000 worlds, home to the most intelligent species in the galaxy. Every race in the galaxy feared them or served them or tried to become one of them. To join the council, a new race had to prove it was strong, smart, and worthy. And now Earth had sent in its request. The room fell quiet for a second when the message from Earth arrived. Then came the laughter, loud and cruel and endless. The Sarn diplomat with 8 eyes and golden skin laughed first. Then the cold blue whisper of the Valari joined in. Even the rock-skinned Drethians rumbled with amusement. Humans were seen as small, soft, and strange. They had no real space fleets, no advanced tech, no psychic gifts. Their bodies broke easily and their minds were full of emotion and chaos. They cried, they loved, they made songs and stories about stars they could never reach. To the council, Earth was a muddy little ball spinning alone in a forgotten part of the galaxy. A joke planet with a joke species. The council approved Earth's test mission with mocking smiles. Let them try the frontier program, they said. Let them be sent to Karnax 9 and see how long they last. Karnax 9 was not a normal test. It was the worst place in the galaxy. The planet was alive and angry with endless storms, razor winds, and beasts that hunted anything that breathed. Even elite warriors from advanced races had failed to survive there. Some lasted 2 days, others less than 1. The council had made it the final test of worth. They thought sending humans there would be funny. Quick show. A fast end. Earth accepted without fear. They sent a group of 10 men and women. No super soldiers, no heavy weapons. Just humans. When the dropship entered Karnax 9's sky, the monitors above the council hall lit up. They watched as the humans landed in a storm of green lightning. The wind screamed and the trees looked like claws reaching out of the ground. The council waited for screams. They waited for panic. They waited for the usual. But what they saw was different. The humans moved fast. They hit the ground and started talking to each other. They pulled gear from their packs and began building a small shelter out of broken metal and thick leaves. One used mud to seal the cracks. Another cut down a thorny tree to build a fence. They did not scream. They did not run. They worked. A Drethian war chief growled softly, watching the screen. Strange, he said. They are not fighting the planet, they are adapting to it. The council told themselves it meant nothing. Wait until the night comes, they said. Wait until the creatures find them. That night the jungle howled with life. Massive shapes moved between the trees. Eyes glowed in the dark. But the humans had already dug trenches. They had built spike traps. One of them held a burning torch and waited. When a beast charged the camp, it hit a wall of fire and pain. The humans shouted in joy and fear. They were not soldiers, but they were not weak. By morning the humans had cooked the creature's meat and used its bones to make tools. They were bruised and tired but alive. The next day they moved deeper into the jungle. The council watched in silence. By day 3 they had built a second camp. They used a broken drone to power a small light. They used vines and stones to make simple weapons. The Valari envoy whispered, "They are not using strength. They are using madness." The humans joked with each other even while they bled. One gave another a high five after killing a snake the size of a tree. Another started naming the monsters as if they were pets. One drew pictures in the dirt of how to fight better next time. They were not calm. They were not perfect. But they were not afraid. A Sarn general finally spoke. "We made a mistake." The council began to worry. No race had ever lasted longer than 4 days without advanced support. The humans were on day 5. A new message came from Earth. No rescue needed. No retreat planned. We will complete the test. A silence fell over the council. This was not how it was meant to go. They had expected weakness. But what they saw was something else. Humans did not win by being stronger. They won by refusing to break. The galaxy had laughed at Earth. Now the laughter was gone. And Karnax 9 was only the beginning. Karnax 9 was not a planet, it was a living nightmare hiding behind a sky of green clouds and black storms. Winds cut like blades and the rain burned skin like acid. Even the trees screamed when touched and the ground moved when it felt life above. Everything on this world wanted to kill and eat and crush whatever dared to land on it. And yet 10 humans stood there alive. Not soldiers, not champions, just explorers and survivors sent by Earth to pass a test. No one thought they would last a day. Now they were heading deeper into the wild. Their feet pressed into wet soil that hissed with heat. The jungle around them growled like it had teeth. Eyes stared from the dark trees. Giant shapes moved without sound. The sky rumbled above with angry thunder as green lightning flashed again and again. And still the humans walked forward. Mira, the leader of the group, raised her hand and the team stopped. They had learned already that sound could call death in this place. They whispered now and used hand signs to speak. They had names for each danger. Scream vines, jaw worms, sky leeches. The names sounded silly, but they helped. Every night they built shelters with spikes. Every day they scouted ahead and mapped the terrain. They used broken tech from their dropship and parts from the beasts they killed. They learned fast because they had no choice. One of them, named Juno, made a fireproof shield using a monster scale and tree sap. Another, called Malik, discovered that the red moss could clean water if you crushed it first. Even simple mistakes cost blood. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they screamed. But they never stopped moving forward. On the 6th day, the jungle sent something new. A predator taller than a building stepped from the trees. Its arms were like hammers and its skin was thick with armor. It roared and the ground shook. The humans did not run. They set traps before nightfall. They dug pits with sharpened wood. They smeared the walls with mud to hide their scent. Then they waited. The beast came when the moons rose, crashed through the trees and charged toward the camp. Mira held her breath. Juno lit the oil. And the jungle exploded in fire and light. The monster screamed as it fell into the pit. The fire spread. The smoke rose. The team watched in silence as the beast thrashed and burned. Then it stopped moving. After that night, the jungle changed. The sounds grew quieter near the camp. Predators circled but did not attack. The humans had become part of the food chain. Far above, the council watched with wide eyes. What was once laughter had turned to concern. Karnak's 9 was meant to break the weak and test the strong. But these humans did something different. They turned pain into power, fear into strategy, madness into control. One council member asked how long the humans had trained. Another said they must have hidden weapons. But the truth was worse than they feared. The humans were not trained for war. They were trained by life. On Earth they had survived storms, volcanoes, floods, and war. They had fought each other and themselves for thousands of years. This planet was terrible, but not new. Each day the humans went farther. They mapped caves and found strange glowing stones. They built signal towers and used monster bones to hold them up. They made nets from vines and armor from bug shells. Even the birds learned to fly higher when humans passed below. And still Earth sent no help. No message. Only silence. Because Earth already knew. It knew what the council refused to believe. That humans grow strongest in the worst places. That pain is a teacher. That danger is fuel. On the 8th day, the team found a ruined alien ship half buried in a swamp. Old and broken. Not human. Mira ordered the team to salvage what they could. Inside they found tools, weapons, and data. With it, they could see what had come before. Other species. Other failures. Dozens had come. All had died. One had written a message before the end. We came with pride. We leave with nothing. Malik read the message and laughed. We came with nothing. We leave with pride. They repaired a scanner and found signs of movement nearby. Not beasts. Not machines. Something watching them. So they built a trap again. This time the prey was not a monster but an alien drone. Sleek and silent. It floated through the trees, recording everything. They dropped a net on it and hacked its core. Inside they found live feeds. Voices from the council. Laughter at first. Now silence. The humans sent a message through the drone. We are still here. Then they let it go. The council called an emergency meeting. This was not how the test was supposed to end. Karnax 9 was not a proving ground anymore. It had become a stage. And Earth was performing. Some wanted to cancel the test. Others wanted to send hunters to clean up the mess. But one voice rose above the rest. An old warlord from the outer rings. He said, "Let them finish. Let us see what they really are." Back on the planet, the humans had reached a cliff with a view of the jungle below. Smoke rose from old camps. Roars echoed in the distance. But the stars above were clear tonight. Mira sat on a rock and looked at her team. They were cut, burned, tired, and dirty. But they were still smiling. Still joking. Still human. She whispered to the sky. They thought this was hell. But hell is just another place to learn. Juno threw a stone into the dark. "Tomorrow we move again," she said. "There's a mountain to the west. Might be a cave system. Might be more monsters. Only one way to know." They nodded and prepared for rest. No walls. No fences. Only the fire and each other. Karnax 9 was not home. But it was not in control anymore. It had tried to kill them. Break them. Crush them. Instead it had shaped them. And the galaxy was watching every moment. Waiting to see if the joke from Earth would become a threat. Waiting to see how far the humans would go. And the humans, they had only just begun. The jungle had teeth and claws and poison and rage, but it also had something it had never seen before. It had humans. The creatures of Karnax 9 were born from fire and storms and hunger. They had ruled the land for ages. Their bones were deep under the soil. Their blood had shaped the rivers. They had killed everything that moved. Until now. Because now the jungle hunted and the humans hunted back. On the 10th day, a beast larger than a tank charged through the trees. It had 6 legs, a mouth like a tunnel, and eyes like burning stars. It had crushed metal drones and eaten armored scouts. It had never lost a fight. The humans did not run. They lured it into a narrow pass between 2 cliffs. They covered the path in oil made from crushed insects. They sharpened logs and tied them to ropes. They waited until the beast stepped into the trap. Juno gave the signal. Malik lit the fire. The oil roared like a dragon. The beast screamed and turned, but it was too late. The logs came down like spears. Its legs broke. Its head slammed into the stone. And the jungle went silent. They stood around the burning corpse and said nothing. There was no need to cheer. No need to scream. They had seen worse. They would see worse again. That night they cut the beast open and found a gland inside its chest. It glowed with light. When pressed it hummed. They called it a heart crystal. And they used it to power their broken tools. Now they had light. Now they had power. Now they had hope. Each day brought new monsters. Sky shadows with wings like blades. Crawlers that moved underground and struck from below. Liquid creatures that slipped through cracks and burned anything they touched. But the humans kept learning. They studied the tracks. They listened to the winds. They marked the trees with chalk made from crushed bones. Mira began writing a field guide. Not with fancy words or theories. Just facts. This claw means stay away. This flower cures bites. This sound means run. Juno built a warning system using bones and wire. It clicked when anything heavy moved nearby. Malik learned how to make a smoke that kept the sky leeches away. They were not just surviving anymore. They were changing the rules. One morning they found a group of small animals hiding in the roots of a tree. They were shaking. One had lost an arm. It was strange because nothing on Karnax 9 ever looked afraid. Until now. Mira crouched near them and offered water. The creatures did not run. They drank. Something was happening to the jungle. The balance was shifting. Beasts stopped charging. They circled from a distance. They waited. They watched. The humans had become part of the ecosystem. Not prey. Not visitors. But something new. Something dangerous. Far above the council watched with tight jaws and silent rooms. Reports kept coming in. Not just survival. Domination. Karnax 9 was changing. The terrain around the human camps was quieter. The beasts no longer ruled those zones. The council sent drones. The drones disappeared. They sent stealth scouts. The scouts never reported back. One signal came through from a dying drone. The voice was broken, static and fear. They are building something. Not just weapons. Not just traps. Something big. On the ground, the humans had found a cavern under the mountain. Inside were ancient machines, left by some forgotten species. Silent, broken, covered in moss and dust. Malik touched one and it hummed. The heart crystal began to glow brighter. Connected. The machine blinked awake. They had found an old energy core. Enough power to light up a city. They carried parts back to the surface. Bit by bit, they made something new. A wall of bones and steel. A tower that sent signals to the sky. A forge built from heated stones. They called it Fort Never Die. It stood strong with fire pits and watchposts. Creatures came near and turned away. The wind smelled of smoke and iron. Inside the fort the humans trained. They built armor from shell plates. They made weapons from monster claws. They shared every new trick, every new discovery. And they laughed. Not loud and wild, but the quiet laugh of those who had seen death and said not today. Mira stood on the tower one night and watched the stars. She spoke into the recorder they had fixed. Message to Earth. Day 14. Still alive. Still strong. This place is worse than anything I imagined. But we are better than anything they expected. Back in the council chambers, a message flashed on every screen. We are not prey. Panic spread. A vote was called. Should the test end? Should the humans be removed? Should Karnax 9 be purged? But a few voices said no. Let them continue. Let them finish. Because they wanted to see what humans would become if they were pushed even farther. On the 15th day the ground shook. Not from storms. Not from beasts. But from humans. They had made drills from beast teeth and steam. They dug deep into the stone and pulled out a silver ore. It was stronger than steel, light as bone. They forged it into spears and blades. Juno called it ghost metal. They wrapped their armor with it. They tipped their arrows with it. They carved a symbol into the chest plates. A single burning eye, the eye of Earth. That night they heard a sound in the jungle. A call, low and long. Something new was coming. Mira gathered the team. We have stirred the nest, she said. And now the queen is coming. They stood together at the gate of Fort Never Die. Tired, scarred, ready. The jungle roared. A beast the size of a ship pushed through the trees. It had 12 legs and scales like mountains. It carried other creatures on its back. A hive, a living army. The humans did not wait. They fired spears. They used fire. They used smoke. They used the ghost metal. The battle shook the ground. The beast screamed, but the humans screamed louder. They climbed it. They cut it. They brought it down. And when the dust cleared, they stood on its corpse with torches raised. Karnax 9 had sent its queen, and now she was dead. The jungle did not roar anymore. It whispered, and somewhere deep in the roots of the world, the planet itself began to understand. The monsters did not know what was coming, but now they did. It was human. The council hall was cold and wide with floors of silver and walls of crystal that hummed with energy. Great banners of every member species hung above the heads of the powerful. Each one told a story of conquest or pride or long ancient bloodlines. Now those banners hung still and forgotten as eyes turned to the largest screen at the front. The screen showed a planet that was supposed to be death. A cursed world that devoured armies and silenced heroes. A place used to test the desperate and destroy the unworthy. But that world was now changing. And the ones changing it were humans. The council had watched as days passed and the expected results never came. No signs of fear. No cries for rescue. No breaking point. Instead there was progress. Instead there was fire and noise and movement. Instead there was something new. Some members believed it was all a trick. Some believed humans were not even real. Just machines with flesh or secret weapons in disguise. But the proof was there. Beasts falling. Structures rising. Signals flashing. A fortress now stood where jungle had once ruled. They named it Fort Never Die. The name itself made some council members uneasy. Others tried to laugh. But the laughter did not last long. Because now there were more signals, more reports, more questions with no answers. One message was intercepted from the humans. It was short. We are not prey. That message echoed in the minds of those who had seen 1,000 species fall before them. And now something had shifted. The hunters had become the hunted. The jungle no longer controlled the story. The humans did. An emergency session was called. Every chair filled. Every leader present. The Sarn speaker pounded the table. We must act. We must shut the program down. Karnax 9 is compromised. The Valari ambassador raised a hand. We are learning something. Something rare. Let it continue. The Drethian war chief growled low. You do not understand. If they can survive Karnax 9, they can survive anything. Some wanted to send soldiers. Others wanted to erase the records. A few even whispered of destroying the entire planet. Burn it clean. Hide the mistake. But none of them could agree, because deep down they all knew what was happening. They had tested Earth. And Earth had passed. Not with power. Not with numbers. But with something far more dangerous. Adaptation. In the shadows of the council hall, a single old mind watched the screen without speaking. A Keth elder who had seen the rise and fall of empires. His voice was soft, but it cut through the room like ice. They are becoming something else. The others turned to him. The elder continued. Every species bends to survive. They endure or they fall. But humans do more. They do not just survive the storm. They become the storm. Silence followed. On the screen Fort Never Die grew. Now it had walls of ghost metal and smoke towers that rose like fangs into the sky. Creatures stayed far away. The jungle now whispered instead of roared. And then came the worst news yet. A second group of humans had arrived. The council had not approved this. There was no record of another drop ship. No launch. No signal. Nothing. But now there were 20 humans on Karnax 9. The first group welcomed them. No fights. No panic. Just hugs. Plans. Tools shared. Maps copied. Weapons built. In one day the new arrivals were armored and trained. The older humans taught them everything. No books. No manuals. Just stories and blood and laughter. Together they began building something else. A tunnel. A network. A city under the stone. The council watched in disbelief. Who sent them? How did they arrive? What did Earth know that they did not? Another vote was called. But nothing passed. Fear had turned to confusion. Confusion to doubt. Doubt to silence. Some members started deleting reports. Others tried to claim they had warned everyone from the start. Only one voice rose above it all. The Keth elder again. This is not a mistake. This is a door. They asked what he meant. He answered with a question. What happens when a race survives your worst nightmare? What happens when they stop being afraid? No one could answer. Meanwhile, on Karnax 9 the jungle burned again. Not from attack, but from clearing. The humans were planting food. Not earth crops. New ones. Jungle fruit that had once been toxic. Now turned safe through trial and error. They were not just surviving. They were thriving. One human group mapped the river systems. Another studied the sky storms. They spoke into recorders. Shared messages with each other. Built bridges. Built stories. Built culture. And all the while they remembered the first day. The laughter from above. The way they had been called weak. The way they had been told they were not ready. Mira stood before a new team of trainees. Her armor scratched. Her hands burned. Her voice calm. You will hate this place. You will bleed. You will lose things. But you will gain something too. Strength. Vision. A reason to keep going. One of the new arrivals asked a question. What if the jungle sends something bigger? Mira smiled and pointed to the ground. Then we build something bigger too. Back in the council a new message arrived. Clear. Strong. From Earth itself. Your test is over. Our lesson begins. Some members finally broke. They demanded Earth be banned, that their ships be tracked, that their leaders be arrested. But the council could not agree, because behind their pride, behind their power, they saw the truth. Earth had changed, humans had changed, and Karnax 9 was no longer a graveyard. It was a forge, a place where fire made something new, something dangerous. The council's panic grew, but they were too late. The storm had already started, and the storm was human. The sky above Karnax 9 turned dark, not from clouds but from something else. A shadow moved across the stars. A drone. No, a ship. Silent. Watching. It did not come from Earth. It did not come with a warning. It belonged to the council. Inside the fortress, the humans had already seen it. They had built scanners from broken machines and monster hearts. They knew the council would try something, so they waited. Mira stood at the highest point of Fort Never Die with a long glass scope in her hand. She watched the strange metal shape drift above the trees. She said nothing at first. Then she turned to her team. They are here. Malik and Juno stood beside her. Juno loaded a launcher with a glowing spear made from ghost metal. Malik checked the signal towers again. They had learned to listen, to feel the ground, to read the sky, and now they were ready. The council ship did not land. It sent down 3 silver capsules. They dropped like stones. Fast, hard, silent. The ground shook when they hit, but no one panicked. The humans gathered. Every one of them, old group, new group, side by side. They waited at the gates of their fortress. The first capsule opened. Steam poured out. Then a shape stepped forward. Tall, armored, deadly. It was not a soldier. It was a cleaner. The council had sent cleaners before. Machines that erased mistakes. Weapons that did not speak. They had wiped out entire colonies, crushed cities, turned forests into ash. Now one stood in front of the humans. Alone, cold, perfect. It raised its arm and charged a weapon. Mira raised her hand and gave a single signal. The ghost towers lit up. A net of energy surged around the machine. It sparked. It screamed. Fell to its knees. Then came the second capsule. This one held drones. Fast ones. Sharp wings. Laser eyes. They flew high. But the sky traps activated. Lines of heat and wind pulled them into fire. The third capsule did not open. It exploded. A last trick. A final attack. But the humans had already cleared the area. The ground cracked. Trees fell. Dust filled the air. And when it cleared, the fortress still stood. The council watched everything from their private chambers. They saw their best weapons fail. They saw their machines fall. And they realized something that made their blood go cold. It was too late. Too late to stop them. Too late to slow them. Too late to understand them. Because the humans had not just survived Karnax 9. They had taken it, changed it, owned it. Reports came in from deep jungle scouts. Monsters avoiding human paths. Other species watching from the shadows. The balance of power was shifting. Even the planet itself had started to change. The storms were smaller. The air was cleaner. The death rate for native species was dropping. As if the world was healing around the humans. Or bowing to them. In secret, the council called for new meetings. This time they did not speak of survival or peace. This time they used words like threat and invasion and extinction. They feared Earth now. They feared what was coming next. But they could not agree on what to do, because every plan they made, every idea they formed, felt like it was already too late. On Karnax 9 the humans built a second outpost. Then a third. They were no longer just surviving. They were growing. They had schools, libraries made of voice recordings, maps carved into stone walls, children training with bows and tools, elders teaching new arrivals, stories passed down from the first team. Mira walked through the main hall and listened to a young girl explaining monster tactics to a new recruit. She smiled and moved on. This was not just a mission anymore. This was a new home. She stepped into the command room where Malik had something to show her. We broke the council signal. We heard what they said. He pressed a button and the room filled with voices. They called us a virus. They called us a storm. They want to end us. Mira nodded slowly. Then let them come. Juno entered with a smile. We finished the launch pad. We can send messages to Earth. Real ones. Fast ones. They gathered around the console. Mira placed her hand on it and spoke. Earth, this is Mira. Karnax 9 is ours. The test is over. The war has not started yet. But it will. They sent the message and watched it vanish into the sky. Far away Earth heard it. And Earth answered. A fleet began to move. Not for war, but for arrival. More humans. More minds. More hands. Not to escape Earth, but to expand its fire into the stars. The council saw it too late. They tried to block the signal. They tried to warn the outer systems. But their fear had made them slow. And humans were never slow when it mattered. Inside Fort Neverdie the walls were covered with drawings and writings. Simple words. Sharp images. A timeline of pain and growth. At the center was a single phrase carved deep into black stone. You dropped us into hell. We built a home. The ground no longer feared footsteps. The sky no longer howled without answer. The monsters still came, but not like before. They came to watch, to study, to learn. The jungle had become a teacher, and the humans had become its master. One night a creature crawled into the camp and sat beside the fire. It did not attack. It did not growl. It just watched. A child walked up and placed food near it. The creature took it and left. No one said a word, because this was normal now. This was human. The next morning a scout returned with new data. Something buried in the far west mountains. Another ship, older than anything they had seen. Mira looked at the map. This will be our next step. Malik packed his tools. Juno checked the weapons. The team formed ranks. They moved before sunset. Quiet, focused, ready. Above them the sky glowed with fire from new arrivals. More humans. More power. Too many now to stop. Because the council had waited too long. They had watched too long. They had laughed too long. And now the storm had come. Too late to stop them. Too late to run. Too late to hide. Karnax 9 was just the beginning. The humans had built their fortress. And now they would build their future. One fire at a time. The stars were quiet for a moment, but silence never lasts long in a galaxy full of watchers. Across every system where ships drifted and stations floated, the name of Earth began to spread. Not through politics or diplomacy, not through bribes or trade, but through fire and survival and unbreakable will. Karnax 9 had been the graveyard of pride, the end of brave species and bold warriors. But now it stood tall under a new flag, a flag with no colors, just a symbol burned into armor and stone. The Eye of Earth. It was not loud, it was not fancy, but it was seen. And more importantly, it was remembered. The council tried to hold the story back. They tried to erase the footage, tried to bury the files, tried to silence the whispers. But it was already too late. Stories spread faster than ships. And humans had written a story in blood and dust that could not be erased. On the trade station of Jaraka, a Drethian merchant passed a copy of a human field manual to a curious traveler. On a mining moon near Zatha, a group of young soldiers trained using Earth formation patterns taken from intercepted recordings. In a black market on the edge of the dead zone, a rebel commander paid triple the price for a ghost metal blade forged by human hands. The word was out. Earth had passed the test. Not only passed it, but rewritten it. And now the test itself was in question. If the worst planet in the galaxy could no longer defeat humans, then what could? Inside council chambers the fear had shifted. It was no longer about the humans on Karnax 9. It was about the humans off it. How many more were there? How many more would come? What else were they doing while the council watched one single planet? They brought in experts, historians, biologists, tacticians. They tried to understand what Earth really was. And every answer made the fear worse. Because Earth was not unified. It was not one people. It was a storm of ideas, of cultures, of chaos. And yet, in the fire, they came together, not through force, but through something harder to break. Shared pain. The report called it the resilience spiral, a cycle where humans suffered, adapted, improved, and returned stronger, again and again, without end. No other species had shown this trait to such a degree, and now it had reached the stars. At Fort Never Die, the humans were not celebrating. They were preparing. Towers of bone and metal rose higher. Signal platforms reached into orbit. Armories filled with weapons that had never existed before. Half machine, half jungle, all human. They trained new teams. They scouted new zones. They mapped the underground systems of the planet. And every step was shared with Earth, a growing network of survival and strength. Then came the ships. Not warships, not colonies. Something different. Explorers, builders, scientists. Earth was sending minds, not just muscles. One council spy sent a warning before disappearing into static. They are not just soldiers. They are thinkers, dreamers, makers. And the jungle, it listens to them now. Mira walked along the edge of a cliff with a small group of trainees. Below them trees swayed in quiet winds. Birds circled above without fear. She pointed to the horizon. Do you see the edge? That is where we stop building for now. But not forever. One trainee asked, "What is the goal?" Mira smiled. The same as always. Grow, protect, learn, and never forget where we started. Inside the fortress, a new room had been opened. A memory hall. Walls lined with recordings. Each one a lesson, a name, a moment. Juno stood there often, listening, studying, preparing for what came next. Malik worked in the forge, creating something new, a weapon, not to destroy, but to remind. He called it the last laugh, a small device that played the audio of the council mocking Earth. He mounted it inside a scout drone. Every time it flew, it echoed with that laughter, then followed with the message. We heard you. We remember. Other species began to send messages to Earth. Some in peace, some in fear, some in awe. One message came from a long-dead race, hidden deep in the ruins of Karnax 9. A voice recorded before extinction. If you can survive this, you deserve everything. The humans found the message carved into stone. They placed it at the entrance of Fort Never Die. Earth did not respond with pride. They responded with action. New training centers opened on other harsh worlds. New explorers volunteered for unknown missions. And still the lessons of Karnax 9 guided every step. A council scout found a drawing on a wall near the river caves. Simple, powerful, a human figure standing between fire and stars. Behind them 100 more, and above them all, a single line written in red ash. We do not break. We do not bow. The scout returned to his ship and resigned from the council the next day. The panic was no longer growing. It had become fear, then respect, then something deeper. The galaxy had a new name written in the book of dangerous species. But this one did not rise from darkness or power or greed. It rose from pain, and it turned pain into purpose. Earth now had a new place in the galaxy. Not a joke, not a threat, something worse, something better, a warning. On a neutral moon station, two rival warlords sat in silence. Both had fought each other for years. Now they looked at a single piece of data, a report on Fort Never Die. They said nothing for a long time. Then one spoke. If they come here, what do we do? The other answered without hesitation. We follow, because the age of Earth had begun, and no one could stop it now. Not with weapons, not with words, not with fear. Earth's name was burned into the stars, and it would never fade. The stars were quiet again, not from fear, not from silence, but from listening. All across the galaxy, machines paused in orbit. Satellites turned their ears. Sensors faced the blue world on the edge of the spiral arm. Earth, it was time. For months the galaxy had watched the humans. Watched them bleed on Karnak's 9. Watched them rise again and again. Watched them turn fire into tools and monsters into teachers. The council, once proud and loud, had gone silent. Their halls filled with whispers and fear. The name of Earth now carved into every chamber, every screen, every plan. And now Earth was ready to speak. A signal pulsed from the old fortress on Karnak's 9. From Fort Never Die. A beacon built from stone, bone, fire, and will. It reached across systems faster than light. Could not be blocked. Could not be ignored. The final message from humanity. The signal opened with a sound no one expected. Laughter. Real human laughter. Not from pride. Not from victory. But from memory. A voice followed. It was Mira. Leader. Builder. Survivor. You called us a joke. You laughed at our world. You dropped us on a planet where death lives in the dirt. You thought we would scream. You thought we would beg. You thought we would break. She paused and the signal echoed across stars. You were wrong. She continued. We did not just survive. We built. We learned. We healed the land that tried to kill us. We made friends from enemies. We turned pain into power. And fire into a home. We remembered every laugh. Every word. Every look that said we were less. We are not less. We are not weak. We are not prey. The message showed images from the surface of Karnak's 9. Fort Never Die lit by stormlight. Children running across stone bridges. A training field where humans taught others how to survive. A library carved into mountain walls. A creature once feared now sleeping beside a campfire. The galaxy watched and saw something impossible. Peace on a world of war. Order in a place of chaos. Hope where none should grow. Myra's voice returned. We came from a world of water, fire, hunger, and war. We fought ourselves before we fought anything else. We broke our bones. We burned our skies. We lost many. But we learned. And we never forgot. So when we reached the stars, we brought everything with us. The good, the bad, the will to keep moving. You tested us. And we passed. Now we test you. The message changed. Now it showed ships moving through space. Not warships. Not fleets. But explorers. Builders. Diplomats. Families. They flew under one mark. The eye of Earth. Myra's voice grew stronger. We are not here to rule. We are not here to take. But we will not kneel. We share what we build. We teach what we learn. We fight when we must. If you wish to speak, speak with truth. If you wish to trade, bring value. If you wish to fight, then know this. We have already lived through hell. A new image appeared. The wall at Fort Never Die. With names. Thousands of them. Every human who had lived or died on Karnak's 9. Every loss turned into legacy. At the center a fire burned. Always lit. Never allowed to fade. A young voice spoke now. A child. Not Mira. My name is Kale. I was born here. I do not know Earth. But I carry it in me. He smiled and held up a stone tablet. This is my map. It leads to a place where the jungle sings and the wind is kind. We made it safe. We made it ours. He looked into the screen. Come visit. But come in peace. The signal faded slowly, leaving only the stars. The message was done. But its echo would never end. On distant worlds people gathered in silence. In warships soldiers lowered weapons. On trading hubs rivals shook hands. In quiet corners of space voices whispered the truth. Humanity had arrived. And they were not leaving. The council held one final meeting. No votes. No arguments. Only the Keth elder spoke. We sent them to die. And they were reborn. He turned to the others. Let the galaxy change. Let them lead if they must. We have seen what they are. We have seen what they can be. Outside the chamber screens showed the growing network. Outposts. Alliances. Shared knowledge. Old enemies working together under human guidance. Karnak's 9 was no longer feared. It was respected. And Earth. Earth had become something else. A guide. A spark. A name that meant survival and honor. In time others would test new worlds. new challenges. But they would do so under the lessons of humanity, not through dominance, but through fire shared. One symbol remained, the eye. It was not a threat. It was a promise. Promise that no one gets left behind. That no place is too broken to heal. That no test is too hard to overcome. As long as one human stands, with hands bloody, with eyes bright, with heart burning, the galaxy would remember. They came from pain. They walked through death. They built in darkness. And they lit the stars. The final message was clear. We do not forget. We do not forgive. We do not fall. We rise. Again. And again. And again.